This week will be a Team Rocket edition of Pokemon Moon Solo Run challenges. We'll be seeing how fast Arbok and Weezing can beat Pokemon Moon in a solo run. Let's get straight into it. I'm just gonna come straight out and say it, I did not have great hopes for either of these Pokemon. I know Arbok and Weezing were generally okay in their debut generation of Generation 1. Poison offensively was quite decent, plus Arbok got great moves like Earthquake and Rock Slide, while Weezing got the best Poison type move, Sludge. Yeah, that was the best Poison move back in the day. But after looking at the moveset of these Pokemon in Generation 7, my hopes were definitely met with how bad they were. But first, we gotta go over the stats. For Arbok, which we will talk about first, we have 60 HP, 95 attack, which is pretty good, 69 defense, nice, 65 special attack, 79 special defense, and 80 speed. And Arbok is in the medium fast level up group. And so is Weezing, by the way. Weezing has 65 HP, 90 attack, 120 defense, 85 special attack, so it's kind of like a balanced attacker, 70 special defense, and 60 speed. Very unfortunate with how slow we are though. And if we bring up a side-by-side comparison of the stats, Weezing has 42 more stat points than Arbok does. Arbok does have 5 better attack, 9 better special defense, and 20 better speed, but Weezing has 5 more HP, 51 more defense, 20 more special attack, and like I mentioned before, the higher base stat total. So going into this, you would expect Weezing to do better. But to be fair, I'm not so sure. Both these runs are going to be absolutely terrible, and we haven't even gone over the movesets yet. We're going to talk about Arbok first, going up to Hala, including the Totem Raticate fight, and as soon as we beat Hala with Arbok, we'll go over to Weezing and talk about its moveset. But as we make our way towards the normal type trial, we gotta talk about Arbok's level up set. We start with Wrap, Leer, Poison Sting, and Bite. At least Bite gives us neutral coverage for Teacher Emily's Magnemite, which a lot of Pokemon lately have been struggling with pretty badly. Unfortunately, until we get to the league where the move relearner is, we will not have access to Crunch or any of the elemental fangs. And then after that we get Glare at level 12, followed by Screech, Acid, Stockpile, Spit Up, Swallow, Acid Spray, Mud Bomb, Gastro Acid, Belch, Haze, Coil, and Gunk Shot. Gunk Shot is essentially a poison type Fire Blast, and Coil is one of the best setup moves. It raises attack, defense, and accuracy by 1 stage. However, we're not going to have this move until Hapu, the Kahuna of the 4th island. So it's going to be a while till we get access to it, and the news just gets worse from here. Arbok doesn't even get Workup, but what TMs do we get access to? Well, some of the notable TMs we get access to include Toxic, Venoshock, Hidden Power, Hyper Beam, Earthquake, which is in the post game, Return, Sludge Wave, Sludge Bomb, Rock Tomb, Facade, Thief, Round, Brutal Swing, Payback, Giga Impact, Bulldoze, Rock Slide, Dragon Tail, Infestation, and Poison Jab. Dark Pulse and Substitute are also in the post game. That's why they're crossed out. Double Team's crossed out because I ban that TM until I get level 100. And if it's the only available opportunity. At least with Arbok starting off with Bite, we have a pretty decent move in the early game, an effective 60 base power, so it can hit pretty much most things for good damage, including 3-shot the Magnemite. But it's not going to be the best against Totem Raticate though, unless we rely on Bite specifically for flinches, which I have a feeling we might have to do. Also, I do get 1 blackout on Teacher Emily's Meowth, simply because the Magnemite just did a lot of damage to me, and the Meowth was able to knock me out. And also, we need to talk about our ability, Hidden Power typing, and Nature. Our ability is going to be Intimidate. Pokemon Moon, in my opinion, is pretty much the only Pokemon game where Intimidate is pretty much justifiable for a solo run setting, because it helps with pretty much all the totem fights, even the ones that get Omni boosts like Mimikyu. And our Hidden Power typing will be Hidden Power Grass. Hidden Power Grass for most Pokemon is either used as an option for Wishiwashi, or it's used to make EV training on Pikipeks or Zubats much easier. And our Nature for both runs is going to be Naive for extra speed and less special defense. I really prefer not to lower my physical defense because a lot of late game threats are physical attackers. Also, while clearing out the Team Skull Grunts in the Berry Forest, I was very torn on whether to teach Glare or not. Paralysis isn't really that good after Gen 6 because they nerfed the speed drop to be half instead of 3/4. But what I was wondering is, does Z Glare have a good status condition effect? And no, I was told by people in my Discord server that Z Glare just gives you a special defense boost, so yeah, pretty much worthless. So we're gonna not teach that move at all. And why don't we go see how the Raticate fight goes? This is going to be bad. I go into the fight holding an Oran Berry, and I pretty much just have the same 4 moves. My plan is to use 1 Leer to get rid of the defense drop as I get hit with Scary Face. Okay, fine by me. I was really debating using Poison Sting on the Raticate, but then I realized that thing has a Pecha Berry. So at this point, I decided to try and use Wrap on the Raticate for chip damage, and then just spam Bite and just hope for flinches or stuff like that. But here's the unfortunate thing. These Rattatas have Quick Attack, and I got hit with Scary Face, so I'm essentially not getting any flinches at all. So I have the feeling I may have to Blackout Train here or get insanely lucky. I actually end up taking 2 resets here, and then on the 3rd attempt, I end up just blacking out because I was able to knock out one of the opponents, so I was able to get some experience. After some more failed attempts, I went and trained in the grass to get level 15 over a damage rounding threshold. And I think level 15 was exactly what I needed, because as soon as I came back with level 15, I just completely destroyed the trial. I had a decent amount of health left, especially thanks to my Oran Berry. And you know what's funny? We're going to be using the Normalium Z right away. We're actually going to be using the Normalium Z with the move Wrap. Wrap is one of the weakest moves in the game, so how could the Z Crystal be any good? Well, the minimum base power a Z move can be is 100. So every time I use it, Breakneck Blitz will be 100 base power. It's sort of like the equivalent of Gen 1 Double Edge, but I can only use it once per battle, and I'm going to need a decent amount of training in order to prepare for Hala. I am going to need level 20 for Hala because at level 20 we will learn access to Acid, which is pretty much going to be a far superior move because all of his fighting types will resist Bite. And here's another funny thing, with the Normalium Z giving Breakneck Blitz a 100 base power move, I am actually going to be using Z moves on wild Pokemon to train just because it's more efficient, which is very, very sad. Eventually, while doing some training in the wild, I am able to get to level 20 and learn myself the move Acid. Now I am ready to go take on Hala. Hala leads off with his Mankey. Right away on turn 1, I do hit Intimidate, so that's nice. I'm going to use Acid for the 2-shot, and unfortunately, I get a critical hit activating Anger Point. Thankfully, he isn't able to land an attack after that. Now, on the Makuhita, I'm going to need to go for Breakneck Blitz based off of Wrap. I need level 20 to ensure this is a one-shot as well. Last up is the Crab Brawler. He will not go for a Z move because I resist fighting type moves, so it's just spam Acid until I win. And by the time I win, I'm able to defeat Hala with a time of 39 minutes and 17 seconds. That is one of the worst Hala splits I've ever seen, but the question is Weezing's going to be better or worse? I have a feeling it's going to be a little bit better, but we'll see. As Weezing makes its way to the Raticate trial, we're going to talk about its moveset as well. We start off with Poison Gas, Tackle, Smog, and Smokescreen. Definitely a far worse starting set. And one piece of bad news that Weezing has over Arbok is, in order to take out Teacher Emily's Magnemite, we're gonna need Assurance, our only Dark type move by level up. And here's the thing, we only get it at level 12, so we're probably gonna need to do a bunch of training for that, because there's no way we're beating her with Smokescreen and Tackle. But other than that though, we get Sludge at level 18, which is a far better poison type move than Acid. And we also get Gyro Ball at level 29, then Sludge Bomb at 34, and that's pretty much it for moves. Theoretically, we could use the Normalium Z with Self-Destruct, but unfortunately due to moveset constraints later in the run, that's just not a feasible strat. And what sort of TMs does Weezing get? It actually gets a quite diverse set of moves. We get Toxic, Venoshock, Hidden Power, Hyper Beam, Thunderbolt, and Thunder. Thunderbolt is only available in the post game, so we could use Thunder if we want to. Return, Shadow Ball, Flamethrower, Sludge Bomb, Fire Blast, Facade, Thief, Round, Will-O-Wisp, Explosion, Payback, Giga Impact, Gyro Ball, and Infestation. You may be wondering why I keep mentioning Infestation. In my opinion, one of the worst TMs in this game. You're gonna want to see it. And in terms of our ability, Hidden Power, and Nature, we're going with Naive Nature as well. Our ability is our pretty much only ability, Levitate. This gives us an immunity to ground type moves. Very useful ability. And our Hidden Power typing is Hidden Power Fighting. Why do we need Hidden Power? It's simple. We need it for Olivia as well as the Nanu fight. And that's pretty much it. It could also help us with Zubat training if we need to. It's not exactly the best for Pikipek because Pikipek is neutral, but we don't really need too much physical attack. In fact, for Weezing, we're going to be running a special attacking Weezing. We need a buttload of special attack EVs and a buttload of speed EVs as well. The EVs with this Pokemon are extraordinarily tight. I need 180 special attack and 228 speed EVs. You may be wondering, oh my god, that is insane. What level are you going to be by the end of the game? I need to be level 80. All those EVs are needed at level 80. It's awful. But at the same time, during routing, this was the best way for Weezing to beat the final 5 trainers. Because if we didn't have all those EVs, we would probably need 85 or 88, who knows, maybe even level 90. And it's just not feasible in this game grinding up that much. And on Teacher Emily, instead of just training in the wild to get level 12 and get Assurance, I was being very stupid and attempting to use the Smokescreen strat, sorta like what Pidgeot did with the Sand Attack strat. I should not have done this. I should have just trained up to level 12. And unfortunately, I get a bunch of blackouts and resets that way. Oh well. And since Weezing is going to need a lot of experience, I actually go to the Melee Cemetery here. I almost never come here. It's an optional area. There's some trainers here. There's the TM for Confide, which just lowers the opponent's special attack by 1 stage. Maybe one day we'll play a Pokemon that needs that TM, but I just came there for the experience. And did you also notice the nickname I gave Weezing? Torture times 5. I decided to just be funny because normally I name extraordinarily bad Pokemon Torture. It's just a very old running joke. I don't remember where it started from. It was probably from a Ditto run or something. But yeah, I decided to make it times 5 because I knew how bad this was going to be. But anyway, let's get to Raticate. One great move that we have for the Raticate is the move Clear Smog. It's a pretty basic move, it's only 50 base power, but it also gets rid of all stat changes on the opponent's side, so Raticate's defense boost just went away. Which is kind of ironic because Clear Smog is a special move, but hey, it gets Stab, I'm able to first try the Raticate, so yeah. Pretty easy. Weezing does not need as much preparation for Hala as Arbok did. I just entered the fight at level 17. I am holding Normalium Z as well. I'm actually going to do something interesting. I'm going to use Z Smokescreen. Not only it lowers the opponent's accuracy, it gives me +1 in my evasion stat. I know I banned the TM for double team, but getting evasion through other means is allowed. And besides, I'm not really sure how much one evasion boost is going to help. But it did help at least one of his moves miss, so in the end I'd say it was worth it. And then, basically, just slowly but surely, you just knock out his entire team with Clear Smog. And just like with Arbok, Crabrawler will not go for the Z move, and I defeat Hala with a time of 33 minutes and 27 seconds. Despite how awful Arbok had to train up for the Raticate, as well as train up for Hala, and also despite the fact that Weezing got a lot of resets and blackouts on Emily, Weezing is actually ahead by about 6 minutes. It's doing very good so far, at least compared to Arbok. But I do not think this is going to keep up. I think Arbok is going to gain a lot of advantages later. But for right now, since I want you guys to know just how bad Weezing is going to be, we're going to stick with Weezing for Akala Island and then make our way back to Arbok. This is going to be a very obvious decision I'm going to make, but I am going to get the leftovers for both Pokemon, especially Weezing. Weezing needs to do a lot of EV training, and pretty much the most efficient way to get that amount of EVs that I mentioned earlier is to get the leftovers. But the thing is, at a 5% chance to find Munchlax, who knows how long it's going to take? And the answer is less than 1 minute. I actually found the Munchlax very quickly. I can also pick up a nugget that's nearby this grass. I can sell this later. Funnily enough, in Sun and Moon, you get access to a lot of different random items that sell for really good money. Nuggets aren't as powerful as they used to be in the older generations, but nuggets still sell for good money, so I'm gonna get it. I also get the Expert Belt as well. On Akala Island, there are 4 major events, as I always mention every video: the Water type trial with Wishy-Washy, the Fire type trial with Salazzle, the Grass type trial with Lurantis, which I think is going to be a joke, and the Olivia Kahuna fight. Let's start off with Wishy-Washy. Wishy-Washy has been proving itself more difficult lately, especially if it summons the Alomomola helper constantly spamming Heal Pulse. After I defeat Cena in Hiahia City and defeat the rival in Paniola Town, I enter the nursery and get myself the TM for Hidden Power. I also do need to go back to Melee Melee Island. You can actually go back on a boat. There's one thing I forgot here. You may be wondering what I forgot, and it is actually one of our most important TMs. Infestation. I'm not even kidding. This move makes such a huge difference on the 3rd island. You guys are going to be kind of impressed. Another TM I have to get is one that's not as great. I have to help this janitor do his job for him by picking up garbage, and at the very end he rewards me with the TM for Round. It's just a 60 power special normal type move, but we don't really get any other good normal type moves anyway, and we need some coverage. And with these TMs obtained, we could go start the Wishy-Washy trial. However, remember when I mentioned I needed 180 special attack EVs and about 228 speed? In fact, those EV thresholds are so high and so tight, I need to start the training on Zubats now. Thankfully, with access to Smokescreen as a stalling move, and leftovers to constantly heal me up, I don't have to worry about the Zubats going for Absorb and healing themselves out of red health, which does lower the chances of them calling for help. I can also use Sludge to one-shot them, and I have Assurance and Clear Smog for coverage as well, just in case I need it. I am going to do speed training in the Verdant Cavern for so long, it takes me until an hour and 6 minutes into the run for me to finally stop training on speed EVs. I stop at 227, which is 1 short, but I'm gonna naturally just get that 1 speed EV somewhere else anyway, so it's not that big of a deal. But I still do need to do special attack training as well on Psyducks, and we can't really do that until we beat Wishy-Washy. Okay, I lied. We actually can do it before Wishy-Washy. I don't know why I was thinking you had to defeat the totem first to do SOS training. I think it's because on the 1st island with the normal type trial, you don't get access to SOS battles until after you beat Raticate. That's probably what I was thinking of. But anyway, here's the moves I'm going to be using to help with Psyducks. I'm going to be using Sludge, Infestation, Smokescreen, and Assurance. You may be wondering what I need Infestation for. This is my move to help weaken the Psyducks. And unfortunately it is very close because Infestation has 4 turns where it does chip damage, and depending on the level of Psyduck that I fight, I may not be able to get it in red health, or I'll just straight up kill it. But if I can get a Psyduck to red health, I gotta try my best to keep it that way. By the time I stop the Psyduck training, I am at 187 special attack EVs. I know, just 1 away from what I need. But to be fair, I will naturally get it somewhere else, so like I mentioned, it's not that big a deal. And with an hour and a half on the clock, which is what some of my worst Pokemon on my tier list got at the Olivia split, let's go ahead and finally take on Wishy-Washy. With how much special attack we have, this is going to be pretty easy. Unfortunately, the Wishy-Washy does survive a Sludge, but it's fine though, I can just 2-shot it, and the Alomomola really can't do anything about it. Inside the Thrifty Megamart, I go ahead and just get myself the TM for Rest, which is going to be very useful for the late game. And I buy up a bunch of repels as well with my 50% off discount code. And thankfully, this is going to be one of the few Pokemon where I actually don't need to bother doing Marowak training. Because of the fact I got all the EVs I needed, and pretty much a lot of the experience too, I can just Bomb Rush straight to the Salazzle. So let's see how it goes. I'm also holding the Poison Bar, by the way. I got it in the Melee Meadows. Against the Salazzle, it gets a special defense boost, but that's fine. I'm going to use Haze to get rid of the special defense boost. So now, it's going to be doing the full amount of damage with Sludge. Unfortunately though, since Salazzle's part poison, it only really does a third. But I also have Infestation as well, I know it's very weak, but it does have the chip damage, which I do think will help. Unfortunately though, Weezing ends up getting a loss here. I'm not able to knock anything out. On the second attempt, I decide to teach Round over Haze. What I'm going to do is use Infestation to start the chip damage, and then I'm going to use Breakneck Blitz. Unfortunately, this will be a special Breakneck Blitz, so it's not going to do too much damage, but it's still taking chip damage from Infestation, and I can go ahead and eventually knock out the Salazzle. But the question is, will I be able to knock out the Salandit as well? And the answer is, I do. The Salandit really can't do much of anything to me, and even though the Salazzle does have the ability to poison me, it actually doesn't realize that, and I'm not able to get poisoned, so I barely win at the Fire Trial with 4 hit points left. The Grass Trial. Do I even have to say it? I guess I will say the Lurantis does barely survive Sludge, but yeah, I pretty much always knew this was going to be a joke. Right before Olivia though, I have to take on Plumeria, and I do unfortunately get a blackout because her Golbat can be very annoying with Confuse Ray. Even though in Generation 7, you only have a 30% chance to hit yourself in Confusion. But yeah, there's just not much you can do about that. Well, I mean, I guess you could have held a Person Berry. There is a chance to get a Person Berry on the first berry tree in the berry fields, but either I didn't get one or I forgot to get it. Anyway, let's go fight Olivia. Olivia leads off with Nose Pass. I'm going into the fight with Expert Belt, Sludge, Hidden Power Fighting, Smokescreen, and Round. Right away, turn 1 on the Nose Pass, I'm going to go for Hidden Power Fighting. It does about half, and I do get paralyzed. I pretty much just accept the fact that I have to be paralyzed. There's just no room on my moveset for rest, I don't think. Well, maybe I could get rid of Round, but I don't know. Her Lycanroc really can't do much damage to me thanks to Weezing's really good bulk. And Weezing is able to defeat Olivia with a time of 1 hour, 48 minutes, and 40 seconds. That is pretty much the worst Olivia split I've ever had, and I don't even think it's close. Let's see how Arbok does. I get the Expert Belt with Arbok, and while hunting for Munchlax, I end up finding it within my first 5 encounters. Wow, both of these Pokemon got really lucky with their leftovers today. Against Totem Wishy-Washy, I go for a pretty funny strat. I will actually use Z Screech, which lowers the opponent's defense by 2 stages, so with the Wishy-Washy, it's just -1. I also get +1 to my attack, so Bite is able to completely destroy it. No need for Hidden Power Grass today. And since Arbok did not have to do that massive EV training session that Weezing had to, I'm going to need to do some training on Marowak for some experience. I'm going to be holding the leftovers while doing this. I can just spam Bite for super effective damage. And if I do get Curse Bodied and I can't use Bite for the 2-shot, I have the TM for Rock Tomb as well as a backup. So I'm going to go ahead and not only get some good defense EVs, I'm also going to get some really good XP. The EVs that Arbok is going to need by the end of the game, it's not too bad. I need 132 attack, 100 defense, and 144 speed. The defense EVs I can pretty much just get from the Marowak, in addition to just using up any irons I find. The 132 attack I may have to train on Pikipeks, and the 144 speed I could theoretically just buy up a bunch of Carbos and just fight a bunch of Fearow in the trees on Route 10 for 2 EVs apiece. Especially since if you're a very high level, you can't really SOS train as reliably without False Swipe. By the time I finally get to the Salazzle, I am level 30 and I have some new moves on my moveset. I now have the move Stockpile. This move will raise the defense and special defense of Arbok by 1 stage, but it only goes up to +3 unfortunately. But that's fine though, we don't really need too much setup anyway. The Salazzle is very easy on this run. The Lurantis though is going to be a bit tough because I don't have any super effective coverage, so I'm going to use Z Screech on Lurantis to get it to -2 defense and my Arbok to +1 attack, and now I'm going to go ahead and use Bite. How much damage will it do? More than half, so yeah, I can easily 2-shot it. If it didn't keep constantly going for Synthesis, I think what I should have done was use a Rock Tomb so that way I could get a flinch, or maybe use an extra Screech. I'm not sure, but I do get a blackout here either way. The Grass Trial is a second try victory though. So now let's go take on Olivia and see what kind of split we get. Arbok is going to start the fight with the Expert Belt at level 32 with Hidden Power Grass, Acid Spray, Rest, and Stockpile. You may be wondering why I need Acid Spray. Acid Spray is a pretty weak poison type move, but it drops the opponent's special defense by 2 stages guaranteed. So what I can do on the Nose Pass is set up some stockpiles to build up my bulk, and then on the Nose Pass, I'm going to go ahead and use 1 Hidden Power Fighting. It doesn't really do that much, it does only about a third, but I'm going to save my Acid Spray for the other Pokemon. When the Boldore comes out, I decided to use Acid Spray right away, followed up by Rest. I really have to take this fight slowly to ensure I win, and when I finally wake up, Hidden Power Grass will be a one-shot. Last up is the Lycanroc. This Pokemon will be a very easy 2-shot with Hidden Power Grass. Unfortunately, it does hit me with Continental Crush, which I'm not worried about, I will survive, but it actually gets a critical hit, and because of that 1 in 24 critical hit, I'm gonna have to do the fight over again, so that is very annoying. That crit was pretty much the only way she was gonna win. When I get back here, unfortunately the Lycanroc seems to be a ranged 2-shot with Hidden Power Grass, and by the time I realized that, it went for its Z move, and you know what happened? The son of a bitch crit me again! On the 3rd attempt, when the Lycanroc doesn't crit me, its Z move only does like 25 damage, and because of that, I'm able to defeat Olivia with a time of 1 hour, 23 minutes, and 8 seconds. This is why I was saying I severely doubt Weezing's abilities to maintain its lead from Melee Island. Weezing is straight up 25 minutes worse than Arbok because of all that training it needed to do. And some of you may say, well, you didn't have to do it. No. I had to do this training. Trust me, guys. I want someone out there to do one of these runs, no planning on EV spreads ahead of time. Just see what happens when you just get EVs from just Pokemon you naturally defeat. See how horrifically rough the endgame is without it. Anyway, this has been a long second island section. We're going to continue on with Arbok so we can finally see something that's not as bad. We'll talk about the Electric Trial, the Ghost type Trial, and the Nanu fight. We'll even see a good potential use for a TM we picked up earlier. So let's continue on. All the Aether Foundation stuff is just the same like usual, and we get absolutely destroyed by How's Raichu. No surprise there. And inside of the Mali City Pokemon Center, we're going to buy 1 TM for ourselves, Bulldoze. Since Earthquake is in the post-game, and for some reason, Generation 7 got rid of TM28 being Dig, this will be our only ground-type move for coverage. I fight most of the trainers on Route 10 leading up to the bus stop, but with the Team Skullgrunts in front of the sign, the guy's Raticate actually gets a surprise blackout on me. Probably because my health was too low from fighting the other trainers. I should have remembered to use a potion. I am able to beat him on the second try and get to the top of Mount Hakanali. I'm gonna take on Mullane first really quick. This is one reason I like having Bulldoze. I also have Brutal Swing. I picked up the TM for Brutal Swing back on Akala Island south of the Lush Jungle. The reason I got this is because I knew I was going to need to teach over Bite at some point, so I wanted to pick up Brutal Swing so I could have some Dark type coverage. However, this guy's Skarmory is so annoying to take on, like, even if I do some setup, I can still hardly take it out, and by the time I do, I'm at low health. Next up is the Metang. Bulldoze unfortunately is seeming to do less than half, and the Metang is able to knock me out. On the second attempt, I'm actually going to be using a Normalium Z. If you use Z Stockpile, it actually gets your health to complete full, so it'll completely heal you up for free. That was what allowed me to defeat the Metang and make it to the Dugtrio with plenty of health to spare as I knock it out with 2 uses of Bulldoze. You may be wondering why I needed to defeat Mullane now and not buy vitamins first. Well, you see, there's a guy in the observatory who gives you a Comet Shard that sells for $30,000. That's 3 entire vitamins. So I'm going to pick that up, sell a bunch of other stuff I have, and go buy some vitamins. And today's Vitamin of the Day is 1 iron and 6 protein. I have more than enough speed, I can't use any more carbos. I need 1 iron to get me to 100, and the proteins will get me to 100 as well. However, I'm still going to need 132 attack EVs by the end of the game, as well as 144 speed. So in order to make sure not only I have the speed EVs, but also I need level 35 in order to deal with the Vikavolt, as well as level 40 for the Mimikyu. I'm going to be fighting the Furos in the trees, not only for the speed EVs, but also for the experience. Sadly though, there is no good way on getting attack EVs, just like with getting speed from Furo. But however, remember how I said we needed infestation? Well, one use for it for Arbok is I can actually use it to weaken the Picky Pecks. Unfortunately though, depending on the level of the Picky Peck and the special defense IVs as well, the chip damage from infestation may end up killing it. But that's fine though, during those few turns I could still get some attack EV training in. And besides, we only need to get up to 132, it's not that bad. And as soon as I get to 140 attack EVs, which is pretty much more than we needed, we're gonna go ahead and go take on Vikavolt. I'm going into this fight with one plan in mind. I'm going to use one singular Rock Tomb just to do like about a third. Then I'm going to use the Rock EMZ and use Continental Crush. This should knock it out from here, and thankfully it does. The charge bug is pretty pathetic, no need to really talk about it. Thankfully, Guzma in Mali City Park is easy, and I pretty much fight most of the trainers to ensure I get level 40 for the Mimikyu. Sadly, because of a paralysis, I end up getting a blackout on the Ace trainer with Sandshrew and Marowak. A little embarrassing, but I healed at the center right nearby, so it's not that bad. I may as well just go fight the Ghost Trial now. The guy is mandatory whether I fight him now or after the trial. I also get another blackout to this Swimmer's Pyukumuku, so that was fun. Against the Totem Mimikyu, we're going to be holding Leftovers, Bulldoze, Acid Spray, Brutal Swing, and Stockpile. What I'm going to do turn 1 is go for Stockpile. The Mimikyu just uses turn 1 Mimic doing nothing. And now that I have +1 in my defenses, I'm going to go ahead and use Bulldoze. It won't hit the Haunter, but I want the Mimikyu's speed to go down. Then I can use Brutal Swing for the rest of the fight. Brutal Swing does great damage to the Haunter, and I do decide to go for some Acid Sprays on Mimikyu. This was honestly kind of pointless, I'm not using any special moves. Then the Gengar comes out. That's fine though, I'm just gonna have to go back to using Brutal Swing. And thankfully, Brutal Swing does knock out the Gengar, but the Gengar uses Cursed Body on me at the last minute, so now I'm gonna have to knock out the Mimikyu with Bulldoze. And even though I do get a first try victory, this is one of the few fights I actually end up seeing the Gengar. That Mimikyu almost always summons Haunter first. I don't have any problems next time I fight the Ace trainer with the Marowak. I also take on all the trainers in the Ula Ula Gardens, and while I am taking on the Team Skullgrunts blocking Po Town, this is a mandatory double battle. I do get one blackout here due to improper planning, but as soon as I'm able to beat them, I can enter the house right here, get myself the TM for Sludge Bomb, and easily defeat Guzma again. I only need level 43 to take on Nanu, and while I'm fighting Gladion, I'm level 44. I end up losing the fight, but you're not required to win against this fight, so it's not that big of a deal. So now, we need to go take on Nanu. I think this fight's going to go pretty okay, but we're going to have to use a very messed up strat. Nanu leads off with his Sableye. We're using the Buginium Z with Infestation, Stockpile, Sludge Bomb, and Rest. The Buginium Z will create a bug type move that is 100 base power based on Infestation's raw damage. So what I'm going to do is set up some stockpiles on the Sableye and then use Rest to try and get some health back. Unfortunately though, I can only get up to +3, but here's the thing though, Sludge Bomb is not going to do great damage on it. So I'm going to have to rely on the chip damage of Infestation and just spam Rest until it eventually dies. I do decide to go for Sludge Bomb near the end, and I end up poisoning the Sableye as well, which is pretty funny. Unfortunately though, I am asleep when the Krokorok is sent out. It does hit me with Intimidate though, but it's not that big of a deal. Now at this point, I need to try and wake up and use Savage Spin Out. And I am able to wake up at the last second, but unfortunately I hit myself in confusion so I get a reset. I lose to the Sableye on the second attempt, but on the third attempt when I get back to the Krokorok, I go for Savage Spin Out, and look at this, one shot. If it weren't for the fact that this Pokemon got Infestation, this Nanu fight would probably be about 10 times worse, I'm not even kidding. Then, on the Persian, I can't use a Z move on it, so what I'm going to have to do is I decide to just go for Rest, knowing I'm going to survive, but you know what happens? The Persian gets a critical hit. Of course, all these kahunas get auto-crit with their aces. At 11 blackouts and 10 resets into the run, I am finally able to get the chip damage on Persian and eventually knock it out and get a time of 2 hours, 16 minutes, and 50 seconds. This was awful, but I think Weezing is going to be even worse. Weezing also does lose to the Raichu just like Arbok did, and I don't end up buying any TMs from Mali City just because there's really nothing there. I do decide to stop by this berry tree on Route 10. You want to know why I'm stopping by this berry tree? I am trying to get some EV reduction berries. Simply because of the fact there is a third EV I want, and it's HP. There's no specific number I want, I just want as much HP as possible because there are some fights where we're just going to have to go on complete stall strats. So the more HP we get, the better. And not only that, I'm actually 7 special defense EVs short of my goal of 188, so I'm going to get those as well. Both Malayne and Vikavolt are very easy first try victories, and the Guzma fight is a first try victory as well. Guzma is just not going to be relevant for either of these Pokemon today since we resist bug moves. Just before we fight Mimikyu, we're going to go ahead and pick ourselves up the TM for Shadow Ball. This is going to be the move we need to use for Mimikyu. There was a discussion around using the Steelium Z with Gyro Ball, but in the end though, it just wasn't doing enough damage. So we're going to go into the fight with Expert Belt and Shadow Ball instead. Right away on turn 1, I'm going to use Infestation, not just for breaking the disguise, but also for the chip damage. If it wasn't for the chip damage, Shadow Ball with the Expert Belt and all of our special attack EVs would not be a 2-shot. All of the chip damage 100% matters, and that's why I'm saying, for both of these Pokemon, Infestation was literally a godsend. If it weren't for them getting this move, Nanu and Mimikyu would be a lot harder. And thanks to Weezing's bulk, after Mimikyu, I don't really have any blackouts or resets anywhere, although I do get a blackout on this Team Skullgrunt's Grimer, not because of me doing bad decisions. The Grimer was spamming Minimize and I could not hit it and it slowly knocked me out. That was not my fault. I pick up the TM for Sludge Bomb for myself as well, and I do a bit of training in the wild to make sure I get level 43 for Nanu. My moveset is going to be completely different. My moveset is going to be Shadow Ball, Hidden Power Fighting, Protect, Attract with the Adrenaline Orb. Right away on turn 1, I can use Protect on the Sableye to block Fake Out. Now I can use Attract on it. I ran a male Weezing specifically for this purpose. Now I'm going to just spam Shadow Ball and eventually try to knock it out. My plan is to Shadow Ball the Sableye and then Hidden Power Fighting everything else. When the Krokorok comes out, it activates the Adrenaline Orb, boosting my speed. Unfortunately, the Krokorok survives, so it must be a range. But I do end up knocking it out by the end of the day. And last up is the Persian. I don't use Infestation here, but that's fine though. Look at this, Hidden Power Fighting does more than enough. And its Z move, while it won't do too much damage to Weezing, my health does end up pretty low because I got some bad luck against the Krokorok. It does take a few more blackouts in order for Weezing to knock out the Persian because I have to get past the Krokorok at close to full HP. And by the time I finally defeat Nanu, I get myself a split of 2 hours, 26 minutes, and 10 seconds. Weezing was able to narrow the deficit it has compared to Arbok, but instead of being behind by 25 minutes, it's only behind by 10 minutes, so it was able to gain 15 minutes in time compared to Arbok. However though, I don't think this is going to be enough. Remember, the next island is coming up, and Hapu can be a very scary opponent. You may think Weezing will have the advantage because we're going to be immune to ground, but oh my gosh, you have to realize that Hapu fight has a lot of other scary moves, and ground type moves are the least of your problems. And remember else, Arbok is going to have Coil by that fight. And if you want to see just how bad that fight's going to be, let's stick around with Weezing and go through the Aether Foundation. You guys just have to remember, we are playing with 2 mediocre poison types. No matter how well we prepare, we could just get blackouts to random trainers for just no reason. Also, earlier in the video when I mentioned Guzma would be irrelevant, Weezing does actually get a blackout on the Ariados. Things are really not doing well for this thing right now. I end up getting 2 blackouts on him before I'm able to win. And last up is the first fight with Lusamine. You're not required to win this fight, but I would like to win it because the XP yields you get are very, very good. And thankfully, poison types have a great advantage here because they resist the Clefable's Moonblast. And I do defeat her, even though I got paralyzed. Alrighty, we are on Pawnee Island. I am going to need level 53 for Hapu, but before I start the training, there's a few TMs I need to buy. I'm going to purchase the TM for Thunder, Sludge Wave, and Fire Blast. A lot of Weezing's great moves are really going to matter here. I add the moves Thunder and Fire Blast to my moveset just to make this training go a lot better. The main level I need to aim for is level 53. And by the time I get level 53, I'm going to go around the region and get the rest of the rare candies that I missed. I'm also going to go back to Diglett's Tunnel with Machamp and get one TM that may come in handy. The TM for Will-O-Wisp. This move has a pretty interesting Z-move effect. This TM will actually boost my attack if used as a Z-move, so who knows, it might come in handy. But I think more likely than not, we may end up using it for its intended strat of burning the opponent. We'll see. But first, let's go take on the 4th Island Kahuna, Hapu. I am going into the fight with Leftovers, Attract, Toxic, Rest, and Fire Blast. Yes, I'm going to be using Toxic for this fight. I got the TM for it back at the Aether Foundation earlier. So against the Doug trio, since we're immune to ground type moves, it'll just go for Sandstorm as I hit it with Fire Blast. Next up is the Mudstale. I'm going to go ahead and use Toxic on it right away. I almost used Attract by accident. Thankfully, this was the generation where if a poison type uses Toxic, it bypasses accuracy checks. Not like that truly matters, it's still pretty accurate either way. The whole plan here is that the Mudstale can only really hit me with Heavy Slam, so I'm going to use Toxic and Rest. I originally thought of going for Will-O-Wisp for that Mudstale instead, but who knows, I am seriously considering it though, because I did get a reset to the Flygon. I do stick to the Toxic strat, and on the second attempt, I am able to knock out the Mudstale with Toxic. Next up is the Flygon. I'm going to use Toxic for this fight as well. This Pokemon can only hit me with Dragon Breath. It cannot hit me with Earth Power. So I just have to spam Rest and then it slowly dies to Poison. And believe it or not, I can do the same thing to Gastrodon as well. It does try to delay the inevitable though by using Recover. But here's the thing though with using Recover. Toxic is still building up more and more power. And if I wanted to, as soon as I wake up, I can just spam Fire Blast. However though, the main reason I can't use Fire Blast on the Gastrodon is because I ran out. I literally ran out of Fire Blasts. And this stall strat was so bad. I hated doing it. But at the same time in planning, it was the only way I could see Weezing beating this girl. And now for the Vast Pawnee Canyon, I can go back to having an all-out offensive stat like Sludge Bomb, Shadow Ball, Thunder, and Fire Blast. I was expecting to get an occasional blackout or two, but believe it or not, I defeat every single trainer in the Vast Pawnee Canyon, and I don't have a single blackout. And here's the thing though, I am nowhere close to using rare candies. I need to use all my rare candies to get level 78. And since we only have access to 12 candies, that would mean I need to grind to level 66 before I can use the candies. I don't grind all the way up to that level yet before I decide, you know what, I'm gonna go fight the Totem Komodo right now. I do enter the fight with Toxic on my moveset. I was thinking maybe I should use Toxic on it. I can't use Sludge Wave because I can't learn that move. And you may be wondering why Sludge Bomb won't work. Sludge Bomb is actually blocked by Bulletproof, which is the Komodo's ability. By the time I do get back to the Komodo, I decided to use my candies to get level 74. I can just do blackout training in the league if I need to. I also went back to Coney City and I purchased the TM for Venoshock. Yeah, we're going real vanilla degenerate strats here. I'm using Toxic and Venoshock in a solo run, and it actually helped. If this Pokemon had Sludge Wave, that would not have mattered at all. At least Arbok will get access to Sludge Wave. Then I can make my way into the Ultra Space Wilds and save before Lusamine and finish off Pawnee Island of 3 hours, 20 minutes, and 55 seconds. This is already going to be one of the worst Pokemon I've ever done. But the question is Arbok going to be the second worst Pokemon I've ever done? I'm not so sure, Before heading into the Aether Foundation, I do backtrack and get the TM for return. Weezing did not need this move because I was using a special attacking Weezing. This will be a physical attacking Arbok, and we will get access to Coil in just a little bit. I also did grab the TM for Poison Jab right in front of Po-Town. Po-Town is just surrounded by Poison type TMs. Sludge Bomb is on the inside and Poison Jab is on the outside. I also do have Bulldoze and Return for coverage, and I did keep Stockpile. I do plan to use this move for a bit longer, at least until I get Coil. The only issue I have in the entirety of the Aether Foundation is I do get one singular reset to Guzma. Even though the first 2 Guzma fights are often a joke, especially if you have Protect, the third one can be hard sometimes because he does have a full team of 4. Inside of the Pawnee Island Pokemon Mart, I'm just gonna buy 1 TM, Sludge Wave. I also just realized right now doing this voiceover, I think I accidentally bought that TM for Weezing. I have no idea why Weezing doesn't learn Sludge Wave. It doesn't make any sense. And just like I mentioned earlier with Coil, we're gonna need Coil for Hapu, so we're not even gonna consider fighting her until we get level 56. I end up at level 49 starting the training on this island, so it's not gonna be that bad. And not only did I do training, I also went and got a Shuka berry from the top left berry tree. I'm going to be using this berry for Hapu while I'm setting up Coil on the Dugtrio. Not only do I have Coil, but I also have the moves Rest and Return. I end up needing to use Rest on the Dugtrio just because I am about to die thanks to that Sandstorm. I also do have a track for this fight to use on the Dugtrio to make setting up with Coil more consistent. I ran with a male Arbok because of this. And as soon as I wake up and use enough Coils, I can start my sweep with Return. If the Dugtrio didn't get a critical hit, you know, that's something I probably should be expecting by now. The Dugtrio does not crit me on the second try, and I can use Return to sweep the rest of her team. And throughout the entire vast Pawnee Canyon, I only end up getting 1 reset and 1 blackout throughout the entire thing. And what level do I have to train to before I can use the candies? It's not as bad as Weezing. I just have to train to level 59, then I can use my 12 candies to get level 71. Although while doing this training, I end up actually doing a bit too much training. And by the time I realized I was almost level 61 anyway, so I'm just going to take on the Komodo at level 60 and just use all the candies at 61. That'll at least get me a couple extra levels, so not the end of the world. I'm going to be using Poison Jab here just to avoid the Bulletproof. That's why I didn't use Sludge Bomb. Plus, we're a physical attacking Pokemon anyway. I also realized after I used the rare candies before Lusamine, I only have 10 rare candies, so I end up at level 71 anyway. I think I skipped a couple of the rare candies and decided to do the extra training instead. Looking back at this, I should have just gotten the extra rare candies and not have done that training, but oh well, not a big deal. I can get level 71 and save before Lusamine with a time of 3 hours, 4 minutes, and 42 seconds. Even though Weezing was able to catch up to Arbok during Ula Ula Island, it unfortunately did lose a bunch of ground. It went from being 10 minutes behind Arbok to about 16 minutes behind Arbok. Yeah, I think Arbok is pretty much going to win this, but hey, let's just see if Arbok ends up being like second worst instead of being the worst, because I think we all know Weezing's going to be the worst. At least I'm not sure. At this point, the worst Pokemon I've ever done is the tie between Porygon and Guzzlord. Although Porygon is going to get a re-rank at some point for my Kanto series. Anyway, why don't we go back and take on the final 8 trainers, starting with Lusamine. Both Arbok and Weezing are going to have a good time against the Clefable simply because of the fact they both resist Moonblast. For Arbok though, it's just going to use a couple of Coils and just sweep her entire team with a mix of Poison Jab and Bulldoze. I also do have the Poisinium Z, just so I can use a Z move for the Beware and avoid contact and avoid the damage reduction from Fluffy. For Weezing on the other hand, we're just going to go on straight out offense. We're just going to use 2 Sludge Bombs on the Clefable, but unfortunately it metronomes Night Days, lowering my accuracy by 1. That is annoying. Hopefully I can still win despite that. And the answer is no. Weezing actually got a reset because of metronome. So yeah, that was just great. But once I'm able to get past the Clefable without my accuracy going down, the rest of Lusamine's team is pretty easy as well. Granted, I am a far higher level than Arbok. Back to Arbok now with Gladion. Since I had to play the game at nighttime, I am going to have Hail on this route. Thankfully, it's not too big of a deal, especially since I have leftovers. I also did not know at the time the proper time of night to set to where I can get return and avoid hail entirely. And the answer is you gotta set your clock to midnight. Also, yeah, Gladion was a first try victory. The Weezing fight is going to have hail as well. And also, instead of using Fire Blast, I have Flamethrower. I got the TM for Flamethrower back in the Pawnee Canyon while I was doing all that training. Flamethrower is just a more accurate way of knocking out the Weavile and the Lucario. Alrighty, time for How. I outspeed the Raichu and knock it out right away with Arbok. Next up is the Kamala. It's going to be a 2-shot because that Kamala likes to survive everything. It's got really decent bulk. And there's hail up here too, unfortunately. Then on the Flareon, I was debating going either Bulldoze or Poison Jab, and I ended up going for Bulldoze. However though, unfortunately, my health gets so extraordinarily low, and I was so worried the hail was going to knock me out, but thankfully, it didn't, and I can one-shot the Primarina after thanks to Poison Jab. The Weezing is going to be pretty similar. I do outspeed the Raichu and will one-shot with Shadow Ball, so no need to get hit by Psychic. Next up is the Kamala. I go for Sludge Bomb, and it is indeed a one-shot. Then I can 2-shot the Flareon pretty easily. And then last up is the Primarina. I decided to go for Acid Downpour simply just because I wasn't sure if Sludge Bomb would have one-shot. Maybe it would have, but better to be safe than sorry. And now, we need to go take on the final 5 trainers. Let's do this shit. Arbok starts off the final 5 trainers against Hala. He leads off with Hariyama. My moveset is Poisinium Z, Poison Jab, Coil, Bulldoze, and Crunch. I know I said Poisinium Z as a move, but it's my item. We all know what I mean. Anyway, the plan here is just to set up some coils and then begin the sweep with Poison Jab. I will one-shot the Hariyama, one-shot the Primeape, and then on the Crabominable, it is a one-shot. The Poliwrath is obviously going to be a one-shot. And I do have the Z move to use specifically for the Beware to avoid contact. We need to see what Weezing is going to do, since Weezing will not have access to Coil. I do go in with the Poisinium Z, and Sludge Bomb will just be a simple 2-shot on Hariyama. The Primeape will be a 1-shot, and I go ahead and use Acid Downpour on the Crabominable. I don't need to worry about using it for Beware, since Sludge Bomb is not a contact move anyway. It's going to be a 2-shot on the Poliwrath, and will I 1-shot the Beware? No, I do not, and it looks like a very bad range at that, but I do eventually knock it out. Next up in the Elite Four for both of our contenders is going to be Acerola, the Ghost-type Elite Four member. Arbok is going to go into this fight holding a Person Berry. I really do not want that Sableye to get a reset in on me just because of Confuse Ray. I can set up my coils until that happens. And once all the coils are set up, I can use the move Crunch, which I got with the Heart Scale and the Move Relearner at the Pokemon Center on top of Mount Lanakia. I got this move specifically to one-shot her entire team. Alright, Weezing's turn. Against the Sableye, I'm just going to knock it out with 2 uses of Shadow Ball. Next up is the Palossand. I'm going to continue using Shadow Ball, but unfortunately it survives and it uses its own Z move on me, doing very massive damage. Next up is the Frostlass. Thankfully I do outspeed it, but just barely. Then I can knock it out in 1 hit. Next up is the Delmise. I use Shadow Ball and the Delmise knocks me out. You know, that's to be expected. I probably should have used the Ghost-type Z Crystal. But you know what else I just remembered? The reason I didn't go with the Ghost-type Z Crystal is because I still have to do Blackout training. I need to get level 80 for Kukui. So you know what? Let's just continue on with Arbok and we'll come back to Weezing later. Arbok is going to go fight Kahili right now. So let's go play her intro and check the fight out. Against the Kahili, I do have Rock Slide on my moveset. I'm going to start off by setting up some coils on the Skarmory. I only set up 1 or 2 coils, and then I can just 2-shot the Skarmory with Rock Slide. Next up is the Mandibuzz. I go ahead and use Rock Slide. If it weren't for the coils, that would have lived. That thing likes to live everything. The Toucanon and the Oricorio goes down. The The Crobat will outspeed, but that Crobat is very incompetent. It really likes going for Supersonic. You know, I might consider eliminating the wishy-washy tier off of my tier list and just put down like Crobat or something. But it'd be kind of vague and out of context seeing just a picture of a Crobat, so I'll probably hold off on doing that. Anyway, we need to go take on our final Elite Four member, Olivia. Olivia leads off with Relicanth. I have the Chesto Berry, and I taught Bulldoze in the place of Crunch, and I also have the move Attract. You may be wondering what I need Attract for. I'm going to use Attract on the Probopass so I can set up coils more reliably. I am unfortunately going to get paralyzed, and this first attempt just really does not go well because of that and the Sandstorm. On the second attempt, I set up the coils that I need and make my way to the Lycanroc. And you guys remember how the first fight went with Olivia? Guess what happened on the second fight? It knocked me out. It wasn't a critical hit though, which kind of surprised me. On the second attempt, I decided to just replace the Attract move with Rest. I can just use Rest on the Probopass. Even though the Probopass is a special attacker, it's not really going to do too much damage to me anyway, but I still end up getting more resets to this fight anyway. It takes me until 23 resets into the run to finally beat Olivia. And you know what? Before we head to Professor Kukui, we need to go check back in with Weezing. I'm not really going to go over what Weezing does for each of the 4 individual Elite Four fights. Just know that Weezing is essentially doing the same strat for most of them, just brute force with good type coverage. I'm just going to mention, I keep purposefully losing whether it's against Acerola or sometimes Kahili until I know for a fact that for Professor Kukui I will have level 80. And the thing is, it takes a while. By the time I get to 23 blackouts into the run, I am able to defeat Olivia's Probopass at level 80. That means we are now done. You may be seeing I'm also holding the Electrium Z. That's so I can use Gigavolt Havoc on the Carbink for a one-shot. And even though that's the end of the blackouts, Olivia still does give me a couple of resets anyway because she's difficult for both of our contenders today. And now that we've all caught up, they both need to take on Professor Kukui, so let's switch on over to Arbok. Kukui leads off with Lycanroc, and I'm level 73 with the leftovers Poison Jab, Coil, Attract, and Bulldoze. The Arbok outspeeds the Lycanroc by 1 stat point. That was the reason we needed all those EVs. I mean, granted, we do have more speed EVs than I originally thought, but you know what? I'm fine by that. And as soon as I set up the coils that I need, this fight is honestly pretty easy. I can use Poison Jab for most of the Pokemon here, and then when I get to the Magnezone, that's what Bulldoze is for. It's going to get off a Thunder Wave, sure, but we're already past the very fast Pokemon on his team anyway, so it's not that big a deal unless the Magnezone decides to crit me with Thunderbolt. That was annoying. Next up, after that is the Incineroar though. I go ahead and use Bulldoze, thankfully outspeeding. Last up is the Ninetales. It does outspeed, hit me with Blizzard, but I barely survive in red health and clock in with a real time of 3 hours, 18 minutes, and 59 seconds. With 23 resets, 14 blackouts at level 74, with a game time after the long ass credits of 12 hours and 29 minutes. Alright, back to Weezing. This moveset I came up with is so horrendously bad. We're going with Rain Dance, Hidden Power Fighting, Thunder, and Rest. It literally took me almost an hour to plan this Kukui fight with Kingler Calc. No matter what we did, there's just no good solution for this fight. We have to hold on to Thunder though for the Braviary. It's the only thing that can knock it out. And we gotta have Hidden Power Fighting for the Magnezone. And if we don't have access to Rain Dance, Thunder is just gonna be made even worse. Plus, we can use the Rain to weaken Incineroar's Flare Blitz, so it may not go for it. Plus, if I need to, I will need to use the move Rest on, for example, the Incineroar in order to make sure I can have enough health for the rest of the fight. Having Rain on the Incineroar, as I mentioned earlier, does help with it not using Flare Blitz and instead going for Darkest Lariat, which doesn't do as much. And thankfully, once the Incineroar goes down, the very last Pokemon is Ninetales. I'm going to have to knock it out with Thunder. I really should have used a PP Max on this or something, but oh well. It does take a little bit, but eventually, after the Ninetales goes down, Weezing can finally clock in with a real time of 3 hours, 53 minutes, and 17 seconds, with 11 resets, 23 blackouts at level 80, with a game time of 15 hours and 3 minutes. These Pokemon don't even come close to each other. Arbok is just leagues better than Weezing. This is all because of Coil. And honestly, not just Coil. Arbok was able to catch up in the middle island splits, and that was solely because Weezing knew, I knew, for a dang fact that if I did not get all those speed EVs and special attack EVs, the Professor Kukui fight would have been almost impossible. You probably would have had to get hundreds of resets. And you may be thinking, well, wouldn't the hundreds of resets be better? Honestly, probably no. It would make you go insane. I am not doing that, I'm sorry. But yeah, let's take a look at the tier list. These are going to be in completely different tiers. Arbok is going to get itself a spot at the bottom of the F tier, and Weezing at the bottom of the wishy-washy tier. These Pokemon, like I mentioned, so horrendously bad. Weezing is the worst Pokemon I've ever done. It was worse than Porygon by around 14 minutes. And Arbok did worse than Butterfree, Simisear, which I did no pre-planning for, which was a completely bad idea, and Decidueye. Decidueye didn't even have Z-moves, and I'm not even sure Z-moves are going to help. But I mean, it did perform better than Beedrill, but I solely think that's just because of how the Munchlax leftover thing work. Beedrill all around is just pretty bad, and Weezing, I don't think I need to talk about this any further. But yeah, I hope y'all enjoyed my suffering. Next week, the two Pokemon that are going to be racing against each other is actually going to be a fun one. It's going to be the Raichu line. We're going to be playing Raichu versus Alolan Raichu. These are two very good Pokemon in this game, and if you want to know why, here's a hint. Look at their starting movesets. But if you don't want to ruin the surprise, we'll just wait for it next week. So anyway, I hope y'all enjoyed. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you want to see more. And be sure to follow me on my socials or support the channel through YouTube memberships. YouTube members will get access to the patch files for all the Mega Evolution Pokemon we play in Crystal, as well as access to the raw recordings for all these playthroughs, including the Arbok and Weezing playthroughs. Those should be up right now. Anyway, I'll see you all for the Raichus.